Welcome back to some more World and Economica. So, how's your day been going so far? Pretty good? Well, you're about to hear me do some more reading as I'm half asleep, of course. So, let's continue reading. The living room was dim even with the lights on. Lisa and Hagana were in the middle of having some bread. Oh, good morning. Well, hello, Lisa. Hey. With my curt reply, I placed my computer on the table and opened the display. It was still about an hour before the markets opened, but I wanted to check the news. You sure are some junkie. Junkie? What? He doesn't do drugs. Well, that's what the definition of junkie is. How many slices of bread do you want? Just one. Just one slice? You're a guy, you know. Is that enough? Okay, how about two? I was only looking at the screen when I answered, and I could hear Lisa muttering complaints about my reply. But she seemed to be having fun, so I didn't really get it. Glancing over sideways, Elisa naturally put Hagan into my field of vision. I felt a little self-conscious after that talk with Lisa yesterday, but Hagana was ignoring me as usual, quietly nibbling on her bread without giving me a glance. Her smooth black hair and her thin fingers felt like artificial creations. Her small mouth made me wonder if it was even big enough for everyday necessities, and she also had those spunky eyes. If you ignored her personality and just judged by her looks, I felt that it certainly wouldn't be odd if there were people who were willing to buy her with money. Oh, and the moon was filled with people who had that type of money. On average, a working person would be able to make from 2 to 3 million moves in his lifetime. Thus, to buy that girl, 5 million moves would be plenty. This was certainly an amount that people at the head of the pack on the moon would be able to afford. Buying people with money. As a concept, I thought it was actually pretty natural. However, once face to face with someone who was not actually involved in the matter, I had a very strange feeling about it, even before mentioning pity. What? I snapped back to reality when Hagana cast a suspicious gaze at me. It turned out I'd been staring at Hagana without realizing it. She stared at me with suspicion for a while, then looked around herself and wiped her mouth. Realizing there was nothing clinging to her mouth, she continued to stare at me suspiciously. There's nothing stuck to it. I checked before you said anything anyway. It was her usual bad-tempered tone, but for some reason, I wasn't really pissed off by it. If I calmed down and listened to what she said, it's not like it was anything particularly bizarre. It wasn't like I was going to ignore her, even if I could see Lisa looking at me worriedly from behind Hagana. Hey girl, what's with the black getup all the time? What about it? Is it really any of your business? I thought that would have been her follow-up. Thinking about it calmly, though, I wondered if it might be a real question rather than a rhetorical quip. If I placed myself in her shoes, I'd definitely ask something similar if I had just been stared at and then asked about my clothing. I shrugged and said, well, I was kind of curious since you always dress the same. Well, aren't you the same brat? I guess I could deal with that answer. That moment, Lisa, who had been placing toast on the plates, cut in. Hagana, he's Hal, not Brat. Well, he called me, hey girl. Hal. While spreading butter, while spreading butter on her bread, Lisa called my name while jerking her chin lightly in Hagana's direction. Hagana? What, is she trying to train us like dogs? Though I guess being stubborn would be something only a child would do. I opened my mouth in resignation. Oh, Miss Hagana, I was just curious as to why you possessed clothes which all bear the same appearance. I've recalled what I learned in grade school. Good job. And Lisa replied like a teacher. Okay, Hagana. Lisa turned towards Hagana, and Hagana was surprisingly hesitant. I felt like she had been looking back and forth between my face and Lisa's face at least twice now. The hesitant Hagana was like a little animal that had been squirted with a water bottle. Oh, well, you're the same, Hal. Good, well done. This was the first time I saw Hagana fumble at words. If not for her spoiled princess demeanor, she had as much emotion as a metallic robot. But with this, she immediately started looking more girlish. I couldn't help feeling that I was just a simple guy. Hagana's looks, at least, were cute. Well, about the exchange we just had, I do have some opinions of my own. Lisa said as she handed me a slice of bread, and both Hagana and I looked at her. She cleared her throat and said, "You too, be more conscious about how you're dressed." Looking over our synchronized eyebrow furrowing, she continued, "Lavish decorations lead to ruin, but going around in rags leads to ruin as well. It's kind of a waste when you can still wear them, though. Frugality is important, but so is looking proper. Mine aren't rags." "Yeah, but you only have one set of those." "Huh?" Lisa and Hagana turned together to look at me after my exclamation. Hagana proceeded to repeat herself. "Mine are not rags." I wrinkled my upper lip. "And they don't stink." With that line, I became uneasy rather than mad. "It's starting to smell again?" I lost trust in myself and ended up trying to smell myself. Lisa smiled wryly. "No, you're okay, for now at least." "Oh, so I was fine all along. But you stunk before." "Oh, shut up." "Shut up?" My brows were fully wrinkled. Being asked to repeat myself directly ticked me off a bit. As we glared at each other intensely, Lisa tapped her fork on the plate. "Stop it, you two. Besides, both of you only have one set of clothing. This is kind of rare around here." Lisa cut off our pending buts by continuing to talk. "Hagana, you don't have classes today, right?" Lisa could suddenly change the topic, but Hagana was unfazed and answered immediately. "Yes." "And Hal, you're free this evening?" When I got asked, I ended up answering in stupid frankness. "Well, if it's after 5, wait, don't tell me." "That's right. When the rain stops in the evening, the two of you go shop for some clothes. The shopping center on the second block has a ton of inexpensive clothing stores." Hagana and I looked at each other. "Your answer?" Hagana turned to Lisa when she was asked that, like one of Pavlov's trained dogs, and after turning to Lisa, she made a face, her own way of saying, "Oh, shoot." Lisa looked straight back at her and smiled. I guess Lisa's smile was unblockable from the point of view of Hagana, who had supposedly thrown away a precious book of Lisa's, landing the church in a huge amount of debt. Staring down slightly and resigning herself to her decision, she replied in her usual manner, "Yes." "What about you, Hal?" If I had said no here, we'd know immediately who was being a child. Furthermore, I was neither boorish nor obtuse enough to be able to stand being called smelly all the time. However, I just couldn't shake the principle of it being unnecessary spending. As I looked over my clothing, as I looked over my clothing, futilely one last time, Lisa had been looking at me, smiling. At that moment, I realized why Lisa appeared so mature. This woman was just a smile, was it able to display a plethora of emotions. It must be due to being older. I sighed my resignation and replied, "All right, I got it." "Good." She was smiling happily when she said that. All said and done. Maybe it was due to the weather, but the market today didn't really have any particular momentum, making my job difficult. Stocks could only move either up and down, and so on a day where there was no clear direction of movement. Trading strategies I usually use yielded nothing for me to do. For example, there were times when the stocks would all tumble because of some random trigger. As a result of my gluing my eyes to the news, I realized that it didn't matter exactly what triggered it. It might be, for example, that a large enterprise's fis- fiscal, fiscal reports were bad, or a politician of a developed country was caught in some immoral scandal, or perhaps that the planets had aligned. I knew that on those days it didn't matter whether a particular company had good earnings or bad earnings. Its stock would get dragged down in price anyway. Hence, on those days, I'd watch the display without trading. seeking out stocks that had been dragged down by the general sentiment in the market. It's strange, but on those days when stocks would fall for some random trivial reason, I'd always see people selling off as if the world were ending soon. These cowards would sell off that day, but would then rally the next. On the other hand, when the markets were on the bull run, it'd become a chaotic festival, with people selling and buying stocks one after another. But on dull days like this, I could buy some stock for 10 moles and it'll remain at 10 moles for the rest of the day. And if I did that, I'd definitely lose out due to the commissions. I was scoping out the situation during morning trading, but it looked like it was going to be like this for the whole day. On these days, if I forced myself to do some trading, I'd only end up losing in the end. Even disregarding that, my recent losses had started standing now, so I didn't push myself and decided to close the computer. But man, the rain. It was dark outside and the drizzle continued. Outside my window was a narrow alley, so no one passed by. Shutting down the computer made the room silent except for the sound of raindrops hitting the ground under the eaves. Hagana should be in the next room over, but it was silent as usual. Wonder what I should do. This was the problem once I decided not to trade for the day. I'd end up not being able to figure out what to do. Anyway, I decided to leave my room and walk down the dim hallway towards the living room. Entering the living room, I saw Lisa reading a book while sitting on the shabby sofa. Oh? I guess Lisa must have noticed my footsteps as she turned towards me. I didn't answer immediately and instead took some orange juice from the fridge and poured some into a cup. Well, it would probably be more authentic if we were some middle class family from the White Belt, but around here, the orange juice was just some orange colored, sweet tasting chemical concoction. Not working on the computer today? Can't get into the mood. Oh, yeah? Well, I guess you do have those days. Lisa wasn't particularly interested in returning to reading her book. It wasn't some digitized version, but the real deal. When her slender fingers flipped the page, it made an unreliable sound. When are you reading? Huh? Lisa looked at me and paused for a second. It looked like she was thinking about how to answer my question. It's a very old book you totally wouldn't get. Of course, that totally wouldn't get was her mimicking me. When I made a face, she turned back to her book, her shoulders shaking with amusement like a child's. Fraser's The Golden Bow. What? It's a book of religious stories from all over the world collected by some curious Englishmen more than 100 years ago. On rainy days, I start wanting to read this for some reason. Lisa flipped the page again while talking. Is it interesting? Huh? Well, the book itself doesn't present any clear conclusions, and to be honest, there's a ton of falsehoods in here as well. However, it is the distillation of millennia of human culture, so. At that point, Lisa stopped to press her face up to a page as if she were savoring the scent of the book. Perhaps it's just as appropriate for a Christian like me to be reading this book while it's raining on the moon. Totally not getting it. There's that saying that you shouldn't underestimate the world. I got the feeling that she dodged the question, treating me as a kid again, and I scratched my head lightly. So in the end, it's just an elegant way of passing the time, right? Exactly. Her simple reply actually made it more uninteresting. In other words, it was pretty stupid to continue, and I heaved a sigh. Speaking of which, you sure look bored, I guess. My goodness, a proper young person being idle isn't a good thing. On days like this, it's best to stay put. Well, I agree with that, but there is a problem. A problem? Of course there is. It's unhealthy for a young man to merely listlessly wander around all day. Well, there really isn't anything for me to do, so what should I be doing? There's nothing? What, are you going to suggest I go study or something? Lisa smiled with a troubled face. Do I look like the type of person to say that? Surprisingly, no. She then laughed at my response. You don't have any hobbies other than doing your computer thing? Hobbies? I furrowed my brows instantly and shot back a reply. Hobby? You're calling this a hobby? Don't tell me you actually don't have anything else. What? I kind of shrank back from Lisa's serious gaze. No problem with that. Oh? I totally don't have time for no hobbies. Well, I don't know if there's like soccer on the moon, but I don't know about that really. I said that from the bottom of my heart, but it ended up sounding like an excuse. I needed to win at the stock market to survive. I needed to excel at the stock market for my dreams. If there was one thing I lived for, I couldn't imagine it being anything other than standing where no one has stood before. I had no time to do leisurely things Lisa would do, like passing the time reading useless books from the annals of history. It was true that currently I had nothing to do and was just wandering around, but that was because trading was unexpectedly not going too well. Well, if you're okay with it, then that's fine, I guess. After staring at me for a few moments, she returned to her book. Part of me wasn't quite satisfied with something, but I couldn't pinpoint what. Unable to figure it out, I continued to stare at Lisa, who then turned the page and said, "Well, you know the saying, man does not live by bread alone." What? I responded in earnest because actually didn't understand, but Lisa didn't give me a reply. She was deep into her book as if I had simply disappeared. I guess it's some book more than a century old about the gods of Earth, filled with mountains of lies. It'll be impossible to imagine anyone other than Lisa reading such a book on the moon. It's not like there'd be a hobby as pure as this. Usually, I just write it off as some idiot wasting their precious life on useless things, but right now, I felt as if I were on the losing side for some reason. I was not mistaken to dedicate my daily life to stock trading, and right now there was a good reason for not trying to push myself to trade. However, I felt uneasy, getting the feeling that I would be very mistaken to simply stand here. But it was true that I simply wasn't in the mood today. It was a pain to search through stocks even though I decided not to trade today, so I also didn't want to return to my room with the computer. I wonder if my feeling like crap was also a product of the rain. As I was staring out the window, I heard a soft pam. Looking in the direction of the strange sound, I noticed Lisa had closed the book, and then she laughed in resignation. So, oh well, big sis Lisa here will play with you. What? It's not like I was asking for that. Freaking Hal. Oh, really? With that, she simply pulled back. I was actually happy inside about her offer, and thus I regretted my childishness. However, Lisa apparently was able to sense my actual feelings and see through my act. And then she chuckled and stared at me leisurely. Boys sure are stubborn. Good. It was true that I didn't have a clue as to what I should do with my spare time. And besides, if I became pig-headed here, I'd totally pass out thinking about my stupidity later. But it wasn't on the level where I could just say, hey, let's play. I was hesitant for a bit, then conflicted. Finally, I ended up announcing my surrender with a sigh. I wanted to at least stress that I was going along with this because I had no other options. So what shall we do? Since you have a computer, want to play some games? Or maybe we should bake some cookies? Cookies? Oh, you want to make some cookies? Well, that means Hagana could have some later, so let's do that. Well, it's not. Even though I voiced my complaints, they didn't reach Lisa's ears. She got up from the sofa and performed a big stretch towards the ceiling. It's been a while. I wonder if I'm still good. I wonder if I'm still any good at baking them. Oh well. I gave up and looked at Lisa. Well, let's start with some cleanup, and then we gather the ingredients. It'll be okay to rush past that if we were making something else, but with sweets, preparation and process is quite important. Oh yeah? If we're going to do it, we might as well make some fantastic cookies. Yep, she sure looked like a school teacher. Here we go. Oh shit. Well, let's first ready the utensils. Okay? Following Lisa's instructions, I collected the utensils and set them on the table. Since it would be bad to get your clothes dirty, here, put this on. Lisa handed me an apron. Of course. This is like freaking Food Network on this one. This was something she had always donned when making dinner. If I put this on, what are you going to use? Me? Since I'm just giving directions, I wouldn't need one. What? Okay, let's first get 150 grams of butter. Here. 150 G? Oh, this scale was collaborated for Earth use. Just divide by 6 and you'll be fine. What's next? 200 G of cake flour. That don't divide evenly. Sorry. Treat it like real life. Make compromises. Such nonsense. This'll be fine, right? What's next? 70 G of, what the heck, granulated sugar. A bit of baking flour, a bit of baking powder. It does call for one egg yolk, but I guess a whole egg would be fine too. Can you crack an egg? Hey, I can at least separate out a yolk, you know. Okay. Once you've placed all those on the table, spread out a paper towel beneath and sift the cake flour well. If we did a half-hearted job here, the flour would be clumped up. Oh, yeah, I guess I've seen something similar in the kitchen before. While recalling something I'd seen ages ago, I tapped the sieve, sprinkling flour down. Oh, your mom's homemade cookies, huh? I wonder if mine would be a match for them. No idea. I'm a bit young to be able to pick up a wife's taste, so I guess it wouldn't be surprising if I lost. I ignored her words and continued to sift the flour while he doesn't even care about her thing. Meanwhile, Lisa poured hot water from a pot into a large bowl. What are you doing? I've got to soften the butter a bit. Are you done with this sifting? Something like this, right? Okay, here. She handed me the small bowl of butter and a whisk. What? Slightly dip the bowl with the butter into the hot water and then stir slowly while the butter is softening. We're just softening the butter, so don't melt it. Afterwards, just keep stirring. Don't give such difficult instructions. You must take a shot at everything in life. I heaved a sigh and sank the bowl into the hot water a bit and started letting the butter melt a little, just as I was told. Next to me was Lisa, the foreman, staring at me, shouting out things on a whim like, "You're pushing it in too much," or "Put more guts into it." Finally, the butter had become somewhat loose and I broke it up forcefully and mashed it down. So, how long do I keep stirring? Until it gets to be like melted vanilla ice cream. We don't have any electric mixers? We're in a low gravity environment, so quit complaining. What has gravity to have to do with it? I ended up hugging the bowl and started stirring it. At first it was just sticking to the stir, so I wasn't sure whether I was mixing it or just crushing it. But eventually started turning viscous, or whatever that word is, so it felt more like mixing. Well, there are no electric mixers on the moon. I don't know if I don't know if they have it on the moon, but I don't know. Anyway, more like mixing. Lisa added a pinch of salt and then, after more mixing, dropped the egg in. Okay, keep on mixing, keep on mixing. Lisa, of all people, started talking in her strange rhythm. I was pretty much totally into it, mashing things around. And then Lisa lifted her head a bit. Oh, Hagana. When I looked up from the bowl, Hagana was frowning and looked this way, as upset as could be. We're making cookies. Want to come help too? I won't. Hagana phrased it simply and walked across the living room to the bathroom. She hasn't been in this bad of a mood for a while. Isn't she always like this? When she's in a good mood, she ponders a bit more before saying no. I see. With that, I started getting the feeling that I was beginning to understand why Lisa bothered with me. I wonder if she got hit with that difficult of a problem. Lisa was gradually adding cake flour to the bowl, and I put my heart into mixing it so that it wouldn't clump up. They should at least get some motorized cooking implements. So how long do I keep mixing? Hmm? A bit longer. Gah. Alright, no more complaints, mister. Since you're going to be enjoying some delicious cookies afterwards, I want to eat them without the manual labor. Stop quibbling. That cat face, though. Lisa bopped me on the head and I brushed her hand away as though it were a nuisance. At that moment, Lisa's mobile terminal let out a ring. Oh, a phone call? Lisa got up from the table, picked up the terminal on the wall, and was surprised at the number. Sorry, keep making, just keep mixing this for a bit, okay? With that, she went in the direction of the bathroom. I could only hear her muffled voice through the door, but she sounded happy to me. I had inadvertently strained my ear to hear, probably because of a little bit of jealousy on my part, and thus a sudden ding dong like the sound of notes on a dried up xylophone gave me a fright, as though I'd been caught misbehaving. What? When I looked around, the door to the bathroom was open, and I could see Lisa's face as she was talking to the terminal. Can you hold on a second? Hal, go get it. What? The door. Oh. It appeared the sound had come from the intercom. Setting the bowl down, I walked half-heartedly over towards the entrance of the church. Lisa went back into the bathroom and continued her conversation. But who would visit this place? Perhaps it was a certain Toyama who had come to collect debts again. Maybe, maybe not. While pondering that, I slid open the bolt and opened the door. Oh, who is this person? I forgot who. There stood a petite figure wearing a raincoat and staring down at the electronic notebook, typing away at it. Though, while it was a petite figure, there were bulges on either side of the hips, indicating that there were some large packages being transported. The figure was slim, but it was probably a dude, or boy, or whatever. I keep saying dude. As I looked suspiciously at him, he started talking before looking up. Good afternoon, I'm with Kunko, with your usual vegetables, and I also have some questions for Ms. And as he looked up, he froze. I could see beautiful blue eyes staring at me through large glasses. There were a few freckles around his small nose, so I realized he must have come from Earth, where the UV is harsher. However, besides that, I could tell from one glance that he looked kinda dim-witted. Say what? When I asked him while he was just standing there, he took a big step back while keeping his eyes on me. It was midday, so there were passersby. Passersby as usual. He had attracted some odd glances, but he didn't move his eyes away from me. Huh? And then he regained his senses, looking at his electronic notebook, surveyed the surroundings, and looked at me again. What is it? He shrugged his shoulders reflexively and then asked me cautiously, This is the 6th Avenue Church, right? No, nothing. I pondered for a moment and then replied, Now, that name does sound familiar. Is my teacher, Miss Hagana, here? Miss Hagana. I repeated his words and couldn't stop myself from giggling. Wow. I guess it was true that she was teaching. She's here. By the way, isn't it kind of dangerous to be standing there? After being told that, it looked like he finally realized he was smack dab in the middle of the road. While I thought he was kind of dim-witted, I did admire his strong steps while he was stepping forward, carrying all that luggage. It looked like he was used to transporting large items. Damn! He could be stronger than a pack mule from what I know. I don't know. I could be wrong. So, what was it again? Yes? Didn't you say something about vegetables? Yes, He cleared his throat and took in a deep, big breath. My name is Chris Kun, and I'm from Kun Co. No matter if you need fresh foods like vegetables or stationery, we are your one-stop source for delivery to anywhere on 6th Street. So his name's Chris. We at Kun await your orders. With that, he finished his clear speech in one go. It was probably totally drilled into him by his parents. Even if he stood up straight, he was clearly shorter than me. Hagana was shorter than me, and he was still a bit shorter than her. Oh well, I thought as I pulled back. If you're looking for Hagana, she's inside. Ah, thanks. I guess the fast talk only applied to his spiel, as the Chris I was looking at now averted gazes and walked into the church. At this point, I couldn't figure out if he was a guy or a girl, and when he took off his raincoat inside the church, my confidence fell even further. A threadbare sweatshirt that was obviously too large drooped over him. Below that were jeans with the pant legs totally rolled up, as well as a pair of worn down sneakers. His blond hair was puffed up and rough, as if he had never used a comb in his whole life. However, when he folded up the raincoat and tried to jam it into the bag hanging by the cross straps over his shoulder, I caught a peek of the chest area through the overly large neckline of the sweatshirt. My new hunch was that Chris was probably a girl. Aren't you supposed to be in school now? While feeling a bit of guilt, I closed the door and asked, Uh, uh, um, right now school's in lunch recess, so I'm doing the afternoon deliveries. I see. I guess you guys have long lunch breaks. Oh my god, this is a little too long. Here we go. Lunch breaks. Which means Chris is an elementary school student and under 14. With a few exceptions, all the elementary schools on the moon have at least 2 hours of lunch recess. Oh my lord! I wish I have 2 hours. I could just sit there all day, just play, do whatever the hell I want on the PC. Since I didn't really go to school, I have forgotten about it. Ah, you're here to study while delivering the groceries? Eh? How did you know? If left to her own devices, she'd probably just stand there looking lost, so I started making Chris walk forward with me behind her, as if I were driving chickens around the yard. Did you say so yourself before that you had some questions for Hagana or something? Ah, oh yeah. Well, well, I'm afraid I'll just have to end this here for now. So, next part, we're gonna see how this will go. So, like, comment, subscribe. Have a good one.